Right. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, or wherever you're joining me from. I'm Trish Lindo, and welcome to Too Ambitious. I'm super happy that everyone is here today. If this is your first time watching this show, guess what? You are in good company because this is where we celebrate Black women and women of color entrepreneurs who are changing the world. They are innovative, they're thought leaders, they are making an impact that they're basically making the world a better place. So, this is a chance to celebrate those wonderful women. And today, I have an extraordinary entrepreneur who is doing just that. If you've never heard of her, you're going to want to go ahead, make notes in your phone, write her name down because that's how amazing she is. Her name is Amina AlTai. She is here today, and let me tell you a little bit about her because she's quite extraordinary. She is a super successful business and career coach who takes a holistic approach to supporting her clients and helping them to find their purpose. Now, Amina is a Forbes contributor, Success Magazine's 125 Leaders finalist, and Entrepreneur Magazine Expert in Residence. And she also is the host of the podcast, I'm Gonna Change Your Life, which is one of the greatest puns I've ever encountered. So it's amazing. So guess what? Give me big hugs, give us air hugs, give us lots of emojis, and welcome Amina to the show. Welcome, Amina.
Thank you so much for having me, Trish. And Trish, I want to give you your flowers. You are amazing. This show is incredible. Your energy is incredible. Thank you for creating this experience for us all.
Absolutely, absolutely. I want to thank you for saying yes, because that's where it all starts. You say yes.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you. So, this is a 30-minute show. We're going to jump in, jump out, and, have a great conversation. We're going to feel like we're having a conversation amongst friends without the coffee, maybe just tea. So, like I said, I love the work that you do and, specifically your passion for wellness overall. But, it wasn't always that way. So what happened in your life that placed you on this path to becoming a coach?
Yeah, that's such a great question. So I started my career in marketing and brand management, and I was bouncing between entrepreneurship and corporate America and back again, and just kind of cementing my place in the world as someone who was high achieving, but really unhappy. And then the universe one year delivered me this really big wake up call. I was running my own business, a business that I'd co-founded with somebody else. And I was working, 70, 80-hour weeks and had no boundaries and all the things. And I burned out and I developed 2 autoimmune diseases. And it happened very dramatically where I was starting to feel unwell and I'd been to about 7 different doctors. And then I get a call from that 7th doctor on a Friday. And she says, Amina, if you don't go to the hospital now, instead of going to work, you're days away from multiple organ failure. So I basically had been working so hard that I was working myself into the ground. So I call that my stop moment, where I really had to kind of look at how I was showing up at work, how I was taking care of myself, and choose a different way. And because of that, I got very immersed in wellness and realized that if we want any kind of sustainability in our careers and our lives, we really have to take care of ourselves like it's our job.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't imagine what that must have been like when to get those type of diagnosis that you're not doing a good job of taking care of yourself. What was going through your mind at that point? Were you scared? What were you thinking?
Honestly, I was so disconnected from my body at that point that I was almost disassociated when I got that call. And so this is the wild part. I actually went to work. I didn't go to the hospital. I went to the hospital at the end of the day because it kind of took all day for it to settle in of is this real? This feels a little bit dramatic. And then I was like, you know what? I really should probably look into this. But that's how disconnected I was from my body. And I think that's just emblematic of how a lot of us operate.
I think that, you're absolutely right. We've all been through these different storms in our lives and yeah, I've certainly been through them, and I'm sure some of the people who are watching have as well, but, for you kind of realizing that, this is not a good thing. How did you start sort of moving forward? What did you do in the beginning to kind of get going and get yourself back on track?
Yeah. So I always say to my clients now when they're kind of starting a new journey, go towards what charms you because there's so much information for you there. And so that's what I started to do. I was diagnosed with celiac disease, so I had to change how I was eating. So I started to immerse myself in the world of nutrition, and that was just really exciting for me. And then I was like, oh, okay, I need to include different movement practices. So I started to explore that. Meditation became exciting, and I explored that. And just bit by bit was sort of layering in these things. And at the end of that journey, not that there was really an end, but I just was so lit up by what was available to me when I actually felt well, I wanted to teach it. And so that's why it became a big part of my coaching practice, because what I realized is that it is foundational. If we don't have our health, if we're not taking care of ourselves, we can't show up for any of the other things that we care about in our lives. And so I took one step at a time, and then it led me to a place where everything was illuminated because of it. And I wanted to pass that forward to other people.
Yeah, and I love that you say that, you take it one step at a time because sometimes when things happen, we just sort of jump all in and try to do all the things, you
Right.
know. And it's not possible to do all the things all
No.
the time.
No. And then also people will look at that from the outside and be like, oh, I could never do that because it just feels so far away. But everybody goes bit by bit for the most part, right? We put one foot in front of the other if we can, one step at a time to get where we are. And so I think breaking it down is also generous because you show other people of like, this didn't happen overnight. This really was a sequential journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And which part of that wellness routine did you find the most helpful in the beginning? Was it the meditation? Was it, the changing of the diet immediately?
hmm It's so funny because at the time, especially like I was new to the world of wellness, the wellness industry was just kind of like burgeoning at that time. And it felt like everything was sort of the silver bullet, the magic bullet of like, oh, this is going to change my life. And that's how I felt in those moments. But when I think about it, really, it is sort of the sum of all its parts. I think that having all of these pieces that support me are really important. And when I work with clients, I invite them to I look at this, I have a nourishment meter, and it just shows sort of 12 aspects of our life, from nutrition to how we move our bodies to our finances. And then we go bit by bit and we look at what we need to do to feel whole, full, and nourished in each of those areas. And it's so unique to each of us. And so I invite people to really have that perspective, because it's never the one thing that is going to save us, even though we kind of hope that it is or feel that it is. And so what is sort of the sum total for you?
I love that. If everyone is listening, I mean, I think that is such a great way to approach your life and, business. And, for you, you've been a successful coach for 10 years now, which is incredible. Tell me a little bit about your business and how you work with your clients, and who are some of, not like specifically who are some of your clients, but who are some of the people that you sort of look for or may gravitate towards you?
Yeah. So my coaching practice is one-on-one. I also work with organizations if they'll hire me to come in and coach, let's say, their sales team or their marketing team or their leadership team. I have group programs, digital courses, working on a book, you name it, we're doing it.
Yeah.
And the people that I generally work with are, first of all, historically excluded folks, so women, people of color, those with disabilities, anyone that's really kind of spent any time living at the margins and has just known the headwinds of that, because that adds a layer of complexity in our careers for sure. And ones that have gotten to the top of the mountain in their career and looked around and realized that this isn't it, because they made choices based on the shoulds and the musts versus the truth of themselves, which was my story too. The reason I was so unhappy at work is because I was living somebody else's dream and it
Mm.
wasn't true to me. And then I think it's partly what had me express those two autoimmune diseases. And so it's really helping people come home and unearth their purpose that is true to them, and work from that place.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love your approach, especially with one-on-one coaching. When you're working with a client, what is like the first thing that you do with a client when you're working with them?
Yeah, the first thing really is purpose work. So purpose feels like such a huge and lofty concept, right? It feels like this huge thing that we have to enact on in our lives. But I always love Stephen Cope's definition of it, which is to bring forth the best that is within you, because I think that's so kind and almost moment to moment, right? Like the best that we bring forth in this moment may be different to what we bring forth tomorrow and the day after that. And
Yeah.
I think it's just really generous. And so we start with the purpose work. We look at I have this 5-part framework on purpose, where I believe it lives at the center of our gifts, what we value, what brings us joy, what we need, and what we want to impact. And when we're touching all 5 of those areas, we are living a purposeful career. And so that work is foundational and really important, because we can hold it up against any opportunity that comes our way, whether it's our own business or working inside of an organization, and decide, is this truly aligned for me?
Yeah. And I think a lot of the work that a lot of us are doing is to try and remain aligned,
Yep.
in today's world. Eckhart Tolle says, in today's rush, we all think too much, seek too much, want too much, and forget about the joy of just being, right?
Yes.
In your work as a holistic coach, are you noticing that that's what many of us are doing, or some of your clients are doing, just doing too much, you know?
Oh, absolutely. I love Eckhart Tolle, like The Power of Now. I actually re-listening to that right now too.
Oh, I love it.
Such a
Yeah.
beautiful book, and an invitation to be and to be in the moment, because we forget that all the time. Like, even when I talked about purpose right now, I'm talking about it in the context of our careers, but purpose doesn't have to be our career at all, right? Purpose is what we are called forth to contribute in this lifetime. It could be to be the greatest parent, or it could be to map the human genome. We get to decide. And so our being is so much more important than our doing. And most of us forget that, because we live in capitalism, where we have to pay our bills, and, it adds some complexity for sure. But I think one of the most powerful things that I can invite my clients to do is to be in the now, because so
Mhm.
much spin happens when we're either living in the past or tripping into the future, and
Mhm.
we just make very different decisions. And I feel like that's also what underpins Eckhart's work that I love so much too.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And for your work with your clients, and especially helping them to get on track, how long is that process usually?
It can range. I like to start with a foundational 3 months, because I
Okay.
think that's sort of the minimum amount that we can do for
Yes.
really the soul mining to get in
Yes.
there.
Yes.
I'm a Scorpio, Capricorn rising, so like I love to work deep and fast, like intensity is my jam.
Right.
So I'm like, 3 months, let's see what we can do. And if we need to add another 3 months, we can do that too. But I like to start there and see what's possible.
Okay, got it. So 3 months is where to start. What is the longest that you've worked with a client?
A year.
A year.
Yeah.
Okay. All
I'm
right.
very big on people not outsourcing their knowing to me, because everybody has
Mm,
the answers always. And my job as a coach is simply to ask the right questions. But
okay.
I noticed that in coaching programs that go on in perpetuity, people start to outsource their knowing to you. And I never want anyone to do that. And that's why there's always kind of a defined beginning and end to my program.
Ah, I've never heard that before. Outsourcing your knowing. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah. It's like when we rally our therapists, our coaches, our teachers, and we say, well, what do you think about this? Like, what should I do about this? And we're basically going based off of their feedback and their decisions, allowing them to decide for our lives, kind of giving them our agency.
Mm.
And we always have all the answers ourselves. And so I never want people to give away their power in that way.
Yeah, okay, I see that. Yeah, okay. So, kind of like maybe you've been with the same therapist for, 3 years or whatever. And it's like, you haven't like formed that muscle because you continuously are relying on the therapist to sort of provide those answers instead of trusting your gut, basically.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And there's always places where we're stronger in some areas than others. And we need a little bolstering, like we need the therapist in that area for that reason. But when it goes on and on and on, and we're not checking in with ourselves, that's where I get a little worried.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, I love that. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, done some research on you and everything like that. And one of the things that I was very keen on that you said you are a self-proclaimed proud immigrant.
Yep.
Tell me a little about your background and how that's shaped, your world and how you show up.
Yeah. I mean, it would be hard not to. So I'm writing a book on ambition right now. It's called The Ambition Trap.
Love.
And I know, like when I saw the title of this, I was like, oh my God, Trish and I need to chat, because we got a lot of synergies here.
Yes.
But the reason that I studied my relationship with ambition is because of my lived experience. So I'm an immigrant. My dad is Iraqi. My mom is Welsh. And my dad grew up in Baghdad when there was like a lot of turmoil. He finished his schooling in the UK, and then we moved here when I was young. And my dad had to, basically like redo all of his schooling, like his credentials didn't transfer and he had to start at the bottom.
Yeah.
And, he's a brown man named Muhammad with like deep brown skin and an even deeper accent. And I was witness to his experience and how it shaped his relationship to ambition and how it shaped my own relationship to ambition. Like very much being, sort of looking for the American dream or attempting to be the model minority and, rewriting tropes about us and things like that. And I recognized that it was having me show up a particular way in my career. And so, yeah, the identity piece is huge when it comes to our relationship to success, ambition, our desire for growth. Like we really have to look at the lineage and the beliefs there and the systemic pieces as well. That's honestly really huge.
Yeah, absolutely. And in your coaching, you probably address, the different facets of what it means to be an immigrant and, whether it's building a business or working within a corporate structure. What are some of the questions or some of the things that some of your clients, you have to say names, but some of your clients may say to you, and how do you sort of work them through that process and that thought process in their head?
One of the things that comes up a lot, like particularly around immigrant communities, is the collectivism versus codependency.
Mhm.
And so I come from collective cultures, and a collective culture is one in which we are working collectively versus independently, where we often live in multi-generational households, like big reverence for elders, that type of thing. But what happens is when you come into more of an independent context, like in the US, we can kind of keep some of the pieces of collectivism and then get a little too close to codependency, right? So then like putting other people before us so much that we become self-sacrificing,
Yes.
losing ourselves in service to others. And so that's a big thing that I see with a lot of my clients that come from collective cultures as well, is sort of negotiating that line between collectivism and codependency, and then sort of wrestling with, can I have this independence, this different identity now that I'm here? And that shows up at work too in a really big way.
Yeah. And I would imagine too, it's kind of something that plays with your mind a little bit, because if you've worked in a corporate structure, it's not easy to do that because, there's a huge push to, the growth mindset, to be successful, to do all the things, so if you come from such a different mindset, it's kind of like that, always that push and pull, right? Is this the right way? That sort of thing. So that's interesting.
Yeah, the cultures within the culture. Yeah.
Yes. Well, I love that you're doing this work. Super important. And you mentioned your book, an upcoming book. So tell us about this amazing book that you have coming up. And it's The Ambition Trap. Is that still the name? Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me more about it.
So I'm 60 days away from submitting my final manuscript. So
we're
in the throes of it. It's coming out next spring.
Okay.
And it's looking at historically excluded people's relationship to ambition and why it is a trap. Because a lot of the time we were told to take up space, to speak truth to power. And then when we don't have a dominant identity, we can often sort of take a hit for that, personally or professionally. And so looking at case studies of folks out in the world, client stories, my own story. And it's really interesting because there are certain traits that are ascribed as really powerful and wonderful when they are embodied by more dominant identities. And when they are embodied by historically excluded people, we perceive them to be less favorable. And so just kind of studying a lot of our relationship to success and ambition and who's allowed to have it and what it looks like to actually allow all people to be ambitious in a way that feels aligned, and allow all people to have power and agency in a way that feels aligned.
Ooh, I love that. And I can't wait. How did you come up with the title? It's a great title.
That just kind of popped into, I had been working in the proposal and in the material for a while. And actually I had come up with the framework years before. I was inspired by some clients, but also my experience. And then, when I was going to submit the proposal, I was just trying all these different titles, all these different things. And that one popped in and I was like, oh, I think this is it.
Yes. I love when that happens, when you've kind of been noodling on something for a while and you're like, I've got it.
Yeah. The subtitle has not been as easy. I'm still noodling on that one.
It's okay. It's okay. I
It'll come.
mean, you've got some time, right? You got a little bit of time, Yeah. I love it. One of the things I always ask guests here is, would you consider yourself ambitious? And how do you feel about ambition? But I
Yes.
think for you, it's kind of like right there. But would you consider yourself ambitious?
I absolutely do consider myself ambitious. I think a lot of the time, the word ambition, I think, is misused a lot and misunderstood. At its root, I think ambition simply is a desire to unfold. And every living thing on the planet, whether it is like a blade of grass or a cheetah in the savannah, is encoded with a desire to unfold, but we make it right and wrong for certain people. And then also we can have different orientations of our ambition. So in my book, I talk about how sometimes our ambition is fueled by a wound, and I call that painful ambition. And then we want to shift into more purposeful ambition where our ambition is connected to our purpose. So sometimes that desire to unfold can go a little haywire because it's coming from a place of pain, but we can invite it back to our purpose. And then that's a really much more harmonious way to unfold.
I love that. I love that. That's great.
Can you consider yourself ambitious?
Yeah, I do consider myself ambitious. I think that, kind of what you said, I think sometimes when you are a woman and you're ambitious, it's kind of seen as a bad thing.
Absolutely.
And for some, the world kind of, tries to knock you down a few pegs,
Absolutely.
So, but still we rise,
Still we rise.
Yes, we keep it going. So, yes, so definitely. And I mean, I think that's also too where the name of the show comes from, Too Ambitious. I've been told you're too ambitious.
Same.
Yeah, see.
According to who? Whose measuring stick?
Exactly. And also too, that line is always moving, right? It's never the same. So yeah, we could do a whole other show on that, but
Yes, we could.
Yes, we could. But yeah, one of the things that I think is really fascinating also about your work is the wellness piece. And I know that wellness is such a huge part of who you are and how you live your life. Can you talk a little bit about how you take care of yourself on a day-to-day basis? Because I know sometimes that can be when someone says, make sure you take care of yourself, what does that mean exactly? So can you share a little bit about your routine and how you do that?
Yes. So when I work with clients on designing their routine that will support their life and their livelihood, I have them do two versions of it. So one version is for like when conditions are perfect and we can do all the things. And then I have them do a minimal viable wellness plan for moments like the one that I'm in, where it's like 60 days before I submit my manuscript and I've got, a full coaching roster. And it's like, I don't have that much time to, be sitting in front of the red light and go into the sauna and all those things. So I'm in my minimal viable wellness plan right now, but it looks like everything I have the privilege of moving my body. So I, in the last couple of years, got into powerlifting, which is super fun.
Do tell. Powerlifting, is that lifting weights?
Yes, heavy weights and with ballistic movement. And so it's very empowering. It's a really, really fun thing. So I've been really enjoying that. It's very interactive. And then I meditate. I'm a Vedic meditator, so I meditate for 20 minutes twice a day. I don't always get to the second meditation, but it's a goal. I know what to eat that is supportive for this body. I also, one of the things that I've added in the last 2 years has been nervous system work, which has been so incredible. So we do a somatic practice called mapping, which helps your nervous system be more regulated. And I've now brought it into my coaching practice for my coaching clients because it's that cool and transformative. Taking time off is a really big part of it. Seeing friends and family, making sure my finances are dialed in, all of that I consider part of my wellness.
Oh my goodness. You are dropping all kinds of gems. Tell me more about about nervous system mapping. Tell me about that. I haven't heard about this.
I think you would be obsessed. So we all have a nervous system, and our nervous system's job is to keep us safe. And it's scanning our environment all the time looking for threats. But we'll get an email and our nervous system will be like, oh my God, that's a threat. But it really isn't, right? It's we perceive it to be a threat, but it's not actually a threat to our survival. So we're all kind of moving through the world a little bit more dysregulated than we need to be. And so what mapping does, it's a somatic practice where you basically put attention on 2 points in the body. And for at least 2 minutes, placing awareness on those 2 points, and your structure will start to shift. Because when you are tipping into fight or flight, you'll have changes in your structure because your body is literally gearing up to like run out of the danger or fight whatever it needs to. So you'll notice maybe like a shoulder rotates back, or you'll hunch forward, or your arms will become more rigid. There's actually shifts in your structure when you're tipping into fight or flight. And so this methodology brings awareness to your structure so you can down regulate and come more into that rest and digest. And the whole point is that when we're in rest and digest, when it's appropriate, we want to not only live there, right? But we can actually see more creative solutions. We can figure our way out and through, versus when we are in that fight or flight space, our vision actually narrows.
Wow. So where do we find this?
So the practitioner that I work with that I'm obsessed with her name is Amy Bonaducci Gardner, and it's called the Fajardo method is what she teaches. And it's really just such an incredible and supportive practice. And so many people are doing nervous system work nowadays. Like if you open up like TikTok and Instagram, you'll see, I see a lot of it. Maybe it's, kind of like an echo chamber, but a lot of people are incorporating these practices because I do feel like it is, I don't want to say that it is a silver bullet because it's never the one thing like we started the conversation with.
Yes.
But I think it is a very supportive practice.
Okay. All right. I love it. I love learning new ways to take care of myself and be better. So thank you for sharing that. We have a few people watching on Instagram. So definitely follow Amina on Instagram and, maybe send her a DM because I know you probably have some questions, so this is amazing, And so my final questions to you, Amina, would you say that you are living in your purpose right now?
Such a beautiful question. I do believe I am. And I also believe that it can evolve. So my purpose really is to help people kind of come home to themselves and individuate. And I do that through their careers.
Okay.
And I think that there's going to be an evolution of that someday, and then an evolution of that evolution. But it is always the same thread.
Yes, yeah. I love that. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to share all of your wisdom with us. Tell us more where we can find you. Where's the best place to check you out? And of course, obviously your podcast, I'm going to change your life. Amazing.
Thank you so much, Trish. You are amazing. You're such a treasure. Thank you for creating this space for us. Absolutely. Really, you're so incredible and so gifted at this. You all can follow along at Amina AlTai on Instagram, on LinkedIn. It's just my name, Amina AlTai, and my website, aminaaltai.com. Did I just say that? I think I might have repeated that. Anyway, my name everywhere. There's not more than one of me, so I'm pretty easy to find. Yeah, so slide into my DMs if you have any questions or if you're interested in coaching. I'd love to hear from you.
I love that you are the only one, Amina. So that means that a Google search, you're the only one that comes up.
Yeah, on Facebook, there's like a couple more of me, but different spellings.
Okay, got it. That is a gift, and you are truly blessed. That's amazing. So, thanks again for being on the show, Amina. This has been an enlightening conversation, and you and I will keep in touch and have all the conversations, continue to have conversations. I listen to your podcast and I love it. And make sure you guys do too as well. It's a 30-minute podcast. You get a lot of great information. She has some really extraordinary guests on her show that can help you to live a better, more purposeful life. So, thank you for everything and the goodness that you're putting back out there, Amina. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for doing this beautiful work. Clearly, you're your purpose.
Thank you so much, Amina. All right, everyone. Too Ambitious, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you. Bye, everyone.